I am Brooklyn, 32 years old, and for years I have been the invisible shadow in my family, always overlooked, underestimated, and dismissed because I did not fit their mold of success. My siblings flaunt their designer clothes, luxury cars, and brag about their high status jobs like they are trophies while I quietly built something real. But they do not see me. To them, I am the failure who settled for less, the embarrassment who did not chase their shallow version of the American dream. My parents. They are no different. All their pride is tied up in appearances and social climbing, and I have been nothing more than a disappointment to them since I chose a different path. It burns me to watch them parade around, bragging about who they know and what they own, while sneering at me for wearing a simple blouse or driving a practical car. They never ask how I am, what I am passionate about, or what I have accomplished quietly behind the scenes. I have held my tongue for years, swallowing the insults and the silent judgments. But inside, the anger grows a slow, simmering fire, fueled by the betrayal of those who should have supported me unconditionally. How dare they judge me by their shallow standards? How dare they treat me like I do not belong in my own family? The worst part is the hypocrisy. They pretend to be proud of me. To outsiders, while behind closed doors, they dismiss me and undermine every success I achieve. The weight of their constant disapproval and the sting of their cutting remarks have left deep scars. I have learned to hide my true self to pretend I do not care. But the truth is, I do. I care because family is supposed to be where you find love and acceptance, not cold judgment and cruelty. I am done pretending. I refuse to let their narrow minds define my worth or silence my voice any longer. This is not just about me. It is about every person who has been made to feel small by the very people who should have been their greatest champions. If you have ever been betrayed by family, made to feel less than, I want you to know you are not alone. We deserve better. We deserve respect. And we deserve to fight back against the poison of judgment and reclaim our power. After years of being dismissed and invisible to my own family, I finally began to see the true depth of their betrayal. It was not just the sneers, the cold shoulders, or the endless comparisons to my siblings. It was the way they actively tried to erase me, to make me feel like I did not belong. Behind every holiday gathering, behind every family event, there was a silent war waged against my sense of worth. I watched as my accomplishments were minimized or ignored, while my siblings' every achievement was paraded like a badge of honor. I was the quiet one, the underachiever, the disappointment while they were celebrated and praised. But what hurt the most was the pretense. The way they acted like family was about unconditional love, yet their actions proved otherwise. I realized their judgment was not about me, but about their own insecurities and desperate need for control. That realization fueled a fire inside me, one that would no longer let me accept their treatment silently. I decided it was time to fight back, not with anger alone, but with proof. Proof that success is not defined by flashy possessions or status symbols, but by perseverance, integrity, and making a real difference. I began quietly building my own path, working late nights on a project I believed in, one that helped people rather than just filling bank accounts. I chose authenticity over approval, passion over pretense, yet I kept my true achievements hidden, watching to see if they could ever recognize my worth without the usual trappings of wealth and fame. Spoiler, they could not. Their jealousy and bitterness only deepened when they finally discovered the truth. My modest life was actually the foundation of a thriving business, one valued far beyond anything they had achieved. The moment their smiles faded, replaced by stunned silence and awkward questions, was sweet justice. But this story is not just about revenge. It is about reclaiming power, dignity, and the right to be valued for who you truly are. If you have ever felt betrayed or belittled by your own family, you know the sting is unlike any other. But I promise you, standing up for yourself and refusing to be invisible changes everything. Share your story in the comments below and subscribe for more real stories of resilience, betrayal, and triumph. Together, we grow stronger and refuse to be silenced. Building on the resolve I found in the last chapter, I began to see the extent of the betrayal more clearly. It was not only the dismissive words or the sideways glances, but a calculated campaign to diminish me to convince others that I was the family's failure. The subtle jabs about my simple life, the dismissive smirks when I spoke about my work, they all added up to something far worse than petty sibling rivalry. I learned that my own family had been actively spreading rumors to undermine my reputation, framing me as someone who relied on handouts or luck rather than hard work and talent. The sting of their betrayal cut deep, especially because it came from the people I once trusted most. Each family gathering became a minefield where I was constantly on guard not just against their words, but their covert sabotage. I started to notice how invitations stopped arriving for important events, or how my ideas were appropriated by others who took credit in my absence. The most painful betrayal was when my closest family member, someone I considered an ally, sided with the others, choosing loyalty to the family image over truth. It was in this moment of profound hurt and isolation that I decided my silence had to end. I gathered evidence texts, emails, witness accounts that proved the extent of the lies and manipulation, but I did not want revenge through cruelty or petty retaliation. I sought justice through empowerment. I prepared myself to confront the betrayal head-on, not just to expose the lies, but to reclaim my narrative. I started sharing my story with trusted friends and mentors, finding strength in their support and validation. The moment came when I revealed my true accomplishments, not as a boast, but as a declaration of my worth. Watching their faces shift from disbelief to shame was bittersweet proof that truth has power, but also a reminder of the pain caused by their deceit. This chapter is about transformation, about turning betrayal into fuel for growth and self-respect. If you have ever been undermined or betrayed by those closest to you, remember that your story is valid and your voice matters. Comment below with your experiences and subscribe to our channel to join a community where truth and resilience reign. We are here to support each other, to rise above the pain, and to claim the respect we deserve. Picking up from the moment I confronted the betrayal and reclaimed my narrative, I quickly realized that exposing the truth was only the beginning of a much longer battle. My family's reaction was swift and brutal. Rather than acknowledge the hurt they caused, they doubled down on denial and deflection. Accusations flew back and forth, with me painted as the troublemaker, the one stirring up drama to break apart the family. Their tactics were familiar gaslighting, minimization, and playing the victim to gain sympathy from other relatives and friends. It was a toxic cycle designed to isolate me even further, but I refused to let it control me. Instead, I chose to rise above the chaos, focusing on my own growth and dignity. I surrounded myself with people who truly saw me, not just the version my family tried to define, and I invested in my personal and professional goals like never before. At the same time, I knew I had to be strategic. I documented every interaction, every insult, every attempt to sabotage my progress. This was no longer just about family drama. It was about protecting my mental health, my reputation, and the life I was building. The betrayal had fueled a fire inside me, a fierce determination to prove that I was more than the sum of their lies. Yet revenge was not about cruelty or destruction. It was about reclaiming power on my own terms. I took legal steps to secure my interests, ensuring they could no longer interfere with my career or personal life. I confronted key family members, directly setting firm boundaries that made it clear I would no longer tolerate disrespect or manipulation. The emotional toll was immense, and there were moments of loneliness and doubt. But each day, I grew stronger, more resilient. Slowly, those who mattered began to recognize the truth and distance themselves from the toxicity. This chapter is about resilience and the hard choices we make to protect ourselves from betrayal's lingering poison. It is a reminder that sometimes the most painful journeys lead to the most profound transformations. If you have faced betrayal or toxic relationships, know that you are not alone. Share your story in the comments and subscribe to our channel for more stories of strength, courage, and standing up for yourself. Together, we build a community where respect and healing come first, and where no one has to endure betrayal in silence. Continuing from the fierce stand I took against the betrayal and toxic dynamics in my family, the path forward was anything but easy. The shockwaves of confrontation echoed far beyond that initial moment, revealing just how deeply rooted the resentment and jealousy ran. I had thought that exposing the truth and setting boundaries would force change, but instead, it unleashed a torrent of resistance and calculated attempts to undermine me. My family's refusal to accept accountability felt like a fresh wound, with every interaction, each excuse denial, and sideways glance adding to the weight of rejection. Yet amidst the pain, I discovered a surprising strength within myself. I realized that true power does not come from retaliation or bitterness, but from reclaiming control of my narrative and refusing to be defined by others' judgments. I doubled down on my goals, not out of spite, but because I believed in the vision I was building something meaningful beyond their limited view of success. With every new project I launched and every milestone I reached, I was rewriting the story they had tried to confine me to. The emotional battle was relentless. There were moments when the loneliness was suffocating, when the silence of estrangement felt like an echo chamber for self-doubt. But I held on to the conviction that healing starts with self-respect. I sought support from mentors, friends, and counselors who helped me untangle the web of familial toxicity and rebuild my confidence from the inside out. Strategically, I protected my assets and legal rights to ensure that my family's bitterness could not sabotage my future. The experience taught me invaluable lessons about the cost of betrayal and the price of forgiveness. Forgiveness did not mean forgetting or excusing the harm done. It meant freeing myself from the shackles of resentment so I could move forward unburdened. I set clear boundaries that were respected only by those willing to meet me halfway. The fractured relationships left behind were painful to accept, but I understood that not every connection is meant to be repaired, and sometimes walking away is the bravest act of love. Looking back, I see how this journey transformed me. It forced me to confront uncomfortable truths about family loyalty and self-worth. It showed me that success is not just financial achievement, but the courage to stand firm in who you are despite betrayal. This story is for anyone who has felt betrayed by those closest to them and struggled to reclaim their power without losing themselves in the process. If you have faced similar challenges, I invite you to share your story in the comments below and subscribe to our channel. Together, we will continue exploring stories of resilience, justice, and personal empowerment, because no one should ever have to endure betrayal alone, and healing always begins with community. ChatGPT Gene Neubuilding on the resilience I found after confronting my family's betrayal and setting firm boundaries. I quickly realized that healing was not a straight path. It was a winding journey filled with unexpected challenges and moments of self-discovery. After the initial shock and the legal steps I took to protect myself, the emotional aftermath became the true battleground. I had to face the loneliness of estrangement from people I once trusted deeply, grappling with the ache of being excluded from the very family that should have been my refuge. But amid the pain, I also found a renewed sense of clarity and purpose. I began to understand that my worth was never tied to their approval or recognition. This realization fueled a determination to create a life defined by my values, not their expectations. I poured my energy into building stronger, healthier relationships with friends and mentors who truly saw me for who I was. At the same time, I focused on my personal growth, embracing therapy, and self-reflection to heal wounds left by years of emotional neglect. The process was neither quick nor easy. There were days when the weight of betrayal felt unbearable, but each step forward brought me closer to peace. I also learned the importance of forgiveness, not as a way to excuse the hurt or forget the past, but as a means to release myself from the chains of bitterness that threatened to consume me. Forgiving my family was a gift I gave myself, freeing my heart to heal and my mind to move forward without being tethered to old pain. Meanwhile, the boundaries I set remained firm, protecting me from falling back into toxic patterns. Some family members respected those boundaries, and over time, a cautious reconciliation began to take shape, with a few willing to acknowledge their mistakes and work toward change. Others remained distant, and I came to accept that not all relationships can be salvaged. And that was okay. Walking away from those connections was one of the hardest but most necessary acts of self-love. This chapter of my life reinforced a powerful lesson. True strength lies not in holding on to what hurts us, but in having the courage to let go and rebuild on our own terms. It taught me that success is not just measured by career milestones or wealth, but by the resilience to rise above betrayal and the wisdom to nurture only the relationships that uplift us. If you have ever faced deep betrayal or toxic family dynamics, know that you are not alone. Your healing journey matters, and you have the power to reclaim your story. Please share your experiences in the comments below and subscribe to our channel for more stories of courage growth and the hard-won freedom that comes from standing up for yourself. Together, we create a space where healing and empowerment thrive, and betrayal no longer defines us. ChatGPT Gianoi, following the intense emotional healing and the difficult boundaries I set with my family, the next phase of my journey demanded even more strength and clarity. After the storm of betrayal and the initial fight for respect and recognition, I had begun to rebuild myself on firmer ground. But rebuilding is never just about fixing what was broken. It is about creating something new that no longer depends on the fragile acceptance of others. I had to learn to thrive not in spite of the wounds, but because of the lessons they forced me to confront. The most challenging part was navigating the mixed signals from my family. Some remained distant, unwilling, or unable to admit fault, while others tentatively reached out, hoping for a fragile reconciliation. The clash between their old mindset and my newfound resolve was palpable in every interaction. I realized that true forgiveness does not always mean forgetting or restoring relationships. Sometimes it means accepting what cannot be changed and protecting yourself from further harm. With that understanding, I began to focus on nurturing the relationships that genuinely supported and uplifted me, friends who became like chosen family mentors, who guided me with wisdom, and new communities that embraced authenticity over appearance. Professionally, I channeled my energy into my work with renewed passion. Success now held a different meaning for me. It was no longer about proving something to my family or the world, but about making a real impact, staying true to my values, and creating a legacy I could be proud of. Each milestone was a quiet victory over the doubts and dismissals of the past. Yet the scars of betrayal remained, reminding me that trust must be earned and that self-worth comes first. I also learned the vital skill of setting firm, clear boundaries, not as walls to shut others out, but as protective measures to keep my heart safe while still allowing room for growth. These boundaries became the framework for healthier interactions, enabling me to engage with family members who showed genuine willingness to change while maintaining distance from those who perpetuated harm. This delicate balance was not without its tensions, but it was necessary for my peace. As I moved forward, I reflected often on the bitter truth that sometimes the people closest to us can hurt us the deepest, and that healing requires courage to face that reality head-on. But within that courage lies the power to redefine what family means, to choose connections based on respect and love, rather than obligation or bloodline. If you have experienced betrayal, know that reclaiming your life is possible. It demands patience, strength, and sometimes the painful decision to let go of toxic ties. I invite you to share your journey in the comments below and subscribe to our channel where we explore stories of resilience, self-discovery, and empowerment. Together, we build a community that stands firm against betrayal and rises stronger through every challenge. After embracing the painful lessons of betrayal and learning the strength that comes from setting boundaries, I entered a new chapter where healing and rebuilding took center stage. The emotional wounds left by my family's actions were still raw, but I refused to let them define my future. What had once been a source of endless frustration and sadness began to transform into a quiet determination to reclaim my worth on my own terms. I poured my energy into nurturing the relationships that truly mattered, the friends who stood by me unwaveringly, the colleagues who respected my vision, and the communities that valued authenticity over appearances. This network became my chosen family, offering the love and support I had long been denied. Professionally, I rededicated myself to my work, focusing not on proving anything to those who doubted me, but on creating meaningful impact. Every project completed, every success achieved, was a silent testament to the resilience I had cultivated through hardship. Yet the path to healing was far from linear. Old doubts sometimes resurfaced, and moments of loneliness reminded me of the trust I had lost. But I had learned to meet these challenges with grace, using them as reminders of how far I had come, rather than signs of weakness. As I navigated this journey, I realized that forgiveness is not always about reconciliation. It is often about freeing yourself from the burden of resentment. I began to accept that some relationships might never be repaired, and that was okay. Protecting my peace became paramount, and I found strength in choosing which battles to fight and which wounds to let heal in silence. This newfound wisdom allowed me to redefine what family truly meant. It was no longer tied to blood or obligation, but based on mutual respect, love, and understanding. With this shift, I found peace in the company of those who uplifted me rather than those who diminished me. The journey was ongoing, filled with moments of reflection growth and sometimes painful confrontation. But each step forward reinforced the lesson that our worth is not determined by others' acceptance, but by the love and respect we give ourselves. For anyone watching who has felt the sting of betrayal, know that healing is possible. It requires courage to face painful truths and strength to rebuild on your own foundation. You do not have to carry the weight of others' judgments or expectations. Share your story in the comments below and subscribe to join a community of survivors and warriors who believe in rising stronger after every fall. Together, we are rewriting our narratives, finding freedom, resilience, and hope beyond betrayal. The healing I had begun in the previous chapter was just the beginning of a long, complex journey. The scars left by betrayal and rejection did not simply fade away overnight. They lingered, sometimes surfacing when I least expected them. Yet I refused to be defined by the pain my family had caused. Instead, I chose to use it as fuel to build a new life grounded in self-worth and authentic connections. As I stepped into this renewed chapter, I found myself embracing vulnerability like never before. I learned that strength does not come from hiding your wounds, but from facing them head-on and allowing yourself to heal fully. I reached out to others who had endured similar betrayals, realizing that our shared experiences created a bond stronger than blood. This chosen family of friends and allies became my refuge, a place where I was seen, heard, and valued without conditions. At the same time, I committed to protecting my peace with unwavering resolve. I set clear boundaries, cutting ties with toxic family members who refused to acknowledge their wrongs or respect my healing process. This decision was painful but necessary. I learned that self-preservation is not selfish, but essential for growth. Professionally, I doubled down on my passions, pouring my energy into projects that aligned with my values, rather than chasing external validation. Each success was sweeter because it was earned on my terms, free from the shadow of family expectations or judgment. Yet this chapter was not without its moments of doubt and sorrow. There were times when loneliness crept in, and I questioned whether the sacrifices I made were worth it. But these moments served as reminders of my resilience and the importance of staying true to myself. I realized that forgiveness was not a prerequisite for peace. Rather, it was a gift I gave myself, a way to release the grip of bitterness and reclaim my happiness. This new understanding allowed me to redefine family entirely. I no longer measured relationships by blood ties or obligation, but by respect, love, and genuine support. The people who chose to stand by me in truth became my family, and in their presence, I found freedom. As the journey continued, I carried with me the profound lesson that our worth is never determined by others, but by the love and respect we cultivate within ourselves. If you have faced betrayal or rejection, know that healing is within reach. It takes courage to face the pain and strength to rebuild, but the reward is a life of authenticity and peace. I invite you to share your story in the comments below, join our community of survivors, and subscribe for more inspiring journeys of resilience and triumph. Together, we rise beyond betrayal, stronger, freer, and ready to embrace the future we deserve.